Have you ever tried to express yourself honestly with your partner and it just blew up in your face? Many lovers tend to think that their partner sees and experiences the relationship in the same way that they do, with the same expectations. Therefore, simply learning how to be more emotionally honest should fix the problem. Why? Well, because understanding leads to agreement, right? Wrong. We all communicate from uniquely different perspectives and value very different things, even when all parties understand the situation accurately. This is especially true when we have insecure attachment styles because what makes us feel safe in love is usually very different. For example, partners with anxious attachment or a disorganized attachment style can be a challenge to communicate with because their fear of abandonment often leads them to read even the most benign comments as a sign that their partner is about to leave them. This can result in some explosive arguments, a lot of hurt feelings, and sometimes self-sabotaging behavior. On the other hand, communicating with partners that are more dismissively avoidant can also be challenging because their fear of being trapped or smothered leads them to read into even the most benign requests as a sign that they are being manipulated or controlled. Because these responses can lead to a triggered spiral of repetitive conflicts over time, partners slip into acting out strategies for conflict avoidance rather than conflict prevention. Over time, this can lead to falling into the anxious avoidant trap, which is a situation in which you find yourself both loving to hate and hating to love your partner with a kind of addictive emotional and mental preoccupation. Now, in this 15-minute segment, we are going to explore the difference between conflict avoidance versus conflict prevention, plus 8 trigger statements that should be avoided in insecure relationships. We will also discuss what you can say instead to help maintain open communication and prevent conflict. After learning about these trigger statements, you will feel more confident about what you can say to your partner while preventing an argument. You will have a deeper empathy and a sense of emotional intimacy and connection with them in your ability to repair. And you will feel more hopeful about the future of your relationship and your ability to communicate effectively with each other. Now, this video is for insecure partners, particularly those caught in the anxious avoidant trap that want to experience more love, trust, and connection in their relationship. If this is you, be sure to grab a paper and pen and stick with me until the end. Now, if you are new to my channel, welcome. My name is Briana MacWilliam, and I am a licensed and board-certified creative arts therapist with more than 15 years in the field, helping adults struggling with insecure attachment go from self-doubting to self-sovereign so they can attract the soul-shaking, passionate partnerships that they want. And I do this using a psycho-spiritual approach to creative arts interventions, which I call the MacWilliam method. The content on my YouTube channel is derived from my online courses, which you can learn more about through the link in the caption of this video. If you would like to learn more about your attachment style, you can take the 4-question quiz. If you like what you see and hear and you want to learn more, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. I put up videos once a week, and I wouldn't want you to miss out. Okay, so let's start with conflict avoidance versus conflict prevention. When we talk about anxious attachment or avoidant attachment in relationships, we are usually referring to the 2 most common types of insecure attachment styles. So anxious attachment occurs when someone has a deep-seated fear of abandonment or rejection, while avoidant attachment occurs when someone fears being controlled or trapped in a relationship. Anxious and avoidant partners often have difficulty communicating because they tend to interpret even the most benign comments and requests as criticism or as a sign that their partner is about to leave them. This can result in some explosive arguments and a lot of hurt feelings, or a cold and punitive silent treatment and withdrawal. Now, because they haven't been properly taught how to handle conflict and repair in a healthy way, they usually devolve into various forms of conflict avoidance. Conflict avoidance is when you try to prevent conflict by avoiding certain topics or conversations altogether. Or maybe you pick a fight about something that is relatively surface or unimportant because it's an easy way to distract and obscure the real underlying and most important emotional issue. This may sound and feel like a good idea in theory, but it usually results in more hurt feelings and resentment over time because the underlying issues never get resolved. Now, on the other hand, conflict prevention is when you try to evade a conflict by addressing the problems early on before they have a chance to escalate. This can be done by learning how to communicate effectively with each other and repair any hurt feelings that do occur. One of the best ways to prevent conflict is to avoid certain trigger statements that are known to set off anxious or avoidant partners. So next, we will explore 8 trigger statements that should be avoided in insecure relationships. We will also discuss what you can say instead to help maintain open communication and prevent conflict. Now, please note, these statements were gleaned from a survey I did of my list, and 200 participants responded. These common triggering statements are representative of the majority of the responses I received from self-identified anxious and avoidant partners. So these first 4 trigger statements are statements that anxious partners should avoid when approaching their avoidant partners. I need more affection from you. Now, anxious partners often seek reassurance from their partners through things like physical affection, cuddling, hand-holding, or sex. And when anxious partners don't receive this type of affection, they can feel neglected and unimportant. On the other hand, dismissive avoidant partners often view expressions of physical affection as a form of control or an expression of jealousy by announcing their claim in public, for example. They may interpret requests for more affection as a way for their partner to manipulate or control them or induce dependency. They might also see this as a confusing and vague statement, especially if they already feel like they are giving their partner plenty of affection. So what can you say instead? A better way to phrase this would be, I feel really loved and connected to you when we cuddle, hold hands, or have sex. Can we do that more often? By expressing your needs in this way, you are less likely to trigger your partner's avoidant attachment style, and you are more likely to get your needs met. Why? Because you're focusing on what your feelings of enjoyment are with them instead of what you think they aren't giving you enough of. And you are communicating how you experience affection in very specific and actionable ways. You never spend time with me. Anxious partners often interpret their partner's lack of time as a lack of interest or commitment. They may feel like their partner is always busy with work, friends, or hobbies, and they are not the highest priority. On the other hand, dismissive avoidant partners often view requests for more time together as a way for their anxious partner to invade their private time and space. They might also see this as a confusing and vague statement, especially if they already feel like they're spending plenty of time with their partner. So what can you say instead? Well, a better way to phrase this would be, I really enjoy spending time with you, and I feel really connected to you when we do XYZ activities. I was wondering when and how we might spend more time together doing those things. What activities do you most enjoy doing together? So here, again, you are focusing on your feelings of enjoyment with them instead of what you think they aren't giving you enough of. And you are communicating how you experience time together in specific and actionable ways. You're also expressing curiosity and creating space for them to come up with a solution that you haven't already thought of. You wouldn't say or do that if you really loved me. Now, an anxious partner might say this to their avoidant partner when they feel like their partner isn't being supportive or when they feel like their partner is withdrawing from the relationship. And that is because for the anxious partner, they are usually singularly preoccupied with what their partner is doing and the state of the relationship. They also often conflate acts of service with the depth of someone's emotional affection. On the other hand, a dismissive avoidant partner is usually, singularly, preoccupied with their own autonomous passions and pursuits in the extreme. That means they don't always take their partner into consideration when making plans or decisions that might affect the relationship as a whole. It doesn't necessarily mean that the relationship is not on their priority list somewhere. It's just usually not nearly as high as it is for their partner. Therefore, the avoidant partner will often interpret this anxious statement as an accusation or an attack. They may feel like their anxious partner is trying to control them with guilt or shame, and they will likely become defensive and withdraw even further. So what can you say instead? A better way to phrase this would be, I could use some support right now, and it really helps me feel loved when you XYZ. Or, I'm feeling really alone right now. Is there a way that we could connect? With the first statement, you are focusing on your feelings and offering specifics about how they can contribute to your feeling better by identifying how they have succeeded with you in the past. This feels very different on the receiving end because it avoids critical, conditional, or judgmental ideas about how they should be loving you according to a set of standards that don't necessarily apply to them. It also communicates that you recognize their love in the ways that they know how to give it, and that you are receptive towards that. In the second statement, you are being honest about the feeling you're having, instead of focusing on the condition. And you are creating an opening for them to step in and offer solutions that allows them to succeed with you by changing the conditions based on their own ideas. If I have to ask, it doesn't count. Now, an anxious partner often feels like they have to pursue their avoidant partner in order to get any attention or feel love from them. They also tend to view displays of affection that are given without being asked for as more significant than those that they did ask for. And this is because anxious partners tend to doubt their own lovability and worthiness of love. So when their partner initiates contact or gives them unsolicited attention or affection, it feels more validating and affirming. They also spend a lot of time suppressing their needs and avoiding voicing them aloud because historically their needs were treated as a burden. That means articulating what they really need with specificity feels both scary, exposing, too demanding, and/or like a cheat. Therefore, the unspoken and unconscious communication is more like, I'm afraid if I express my needs, you'll reject them as a burden, and I will be proven as truly unlovable. It leads to a dysfunctional form of relating called enmeshment, where personal boundaries become very fuzzy, hard to recognize, and are usually discounted as mean behavior. Now, on the other hand, avoidant partners often pull away when they feel overwhelmed or smothered by too much contact from their anxious partner. They might need some space to recharge and may not always be available when their anxious partner needs them. They experience their boundaries as quite thick and rigid and will feel fed up with a partner's requests to read their mind. So what should you say instead? The more effective way of communicating this would be to say, right now, I feel really disconnected from you, scared and vulnerable because I had thought XYZ, but then I noticed XYZ. My mind is spinning off because in my heart, I'm afraid that it might mean ABC, and I need to check in with you about this. Would it be okay if we slowed down and talked this out? So here you're focusing on your feelings and your needs without making demands or expectations or expressing expectations about how your partner should be responding. You're also naming your assumptions without deeming them as the ultimate truth or wielding them like an accusation and a foregone conclusion. This demonstrates that you have emotional control of yourself and you are focused on sharing what's going on for you without making any assumptions about what your partner is thinking or feeling or making them responsible for your feelings. It lets them feel less overwhelmed by your needs. It also communicates that you understand that they may not be available when you need them to be, and you don't expect them to read your mind, and that you are willing to work with their boundaries, but you're also not a pushover. So this allows them to feel more connected to you and less like you're trying to control them. So right there, I'd like to take a pause and ask, for anybody out there, do these trigger statements sound familiar? Have you ever uttered them? Has a partner ever uttered them towards you? What is the response that you feel in your body when you hear them? Let me know in the comments. Okay, so let's move on to the next 4 trigger statements. And these 4 trigger statements are statements that avoidant partners should avoid when approaching their anxious partners. You're overreacting. Anxious partners are triggered by this statement because it invalidates their experiences and their emotions. It communicates that their feelings are wrong and that they should just suck it up and deal with it. A more effective way of communicating this would be to say, I see that you're feeling really overwhelmed right now, and I'm sorry that I wasn't able to be there for you in the ways that you needed, but I am here now. How can I support you? This statement validates your partner's experience and their emotions while still communicating that you understand your role in the situation. It also expresses a desire to take action towards repairing your connection, and it lets them know that you are interested in being a part of their emotional life. I'm sorry you feel that way. Now, when uttered with a dismissive or evasive attitude, the statement can come across as belittling and defensive to an anxious partner. When you say, I'm sorry you feel that way, as opposed to, I understand that feeling, you essentially put distance between your two emotional states and you emphasize it, which for the anxious partner will be experienced as an emotional abandonment and rejection. It communicates to them, I can't handle your feelings and/or I won't assume responsibility for helping you feel better, which is annoying for an anxious partner on 2 levels. Number 1, if you can't handle their feelings, then it degrades their trust and respect for you, which makes them feel unsafe in a situation that they are already attached to. That means that deep down, they're going to start talking themselves into remaining in a relationship with someone that they don't trust and they don't respect. And that's going to make them feel very conflicted. Secondly, you're assuming an obligation that they may not actually be communicating or expecting. They're inviting you into a process of experiencing your emotions together in order to find co-creative solutions. That's how intimacy develops. When you emphasize that the feelings are solely theirs and you want no part of it, you're passing up a chance to grow with them. And that hurts. So what should you say instead? Wow, that feeling is really tough. I may not have experienced the exact same thing, but I know what it's like to feel upset over something that's important to me. Let me know how I can support you. This statement communicates empathy and a willingness to be emotionally available without accepting the entire burden of finding solutions onto your own shoulders. It also demonstrates that you can handle their feelings just fine. This will make them respect and trust you even more. It also shows that you are willing to take action to support them, and that makes them feel safe. You must have done something to cause this. When most avoidant partners utter this statement, it's usually to make their partner feel empowered by taking personal responsibility. If you caused it, then that must mean that it's within your power to fix it, and isn't that a comforting thought? Go ahead, champ, you can do it. You'll thank me for this. But your anxious partner is likely to experience this as punitive, shaming, victimizing, and critical of their capacities and agency. If it were within their power to prevent something negative from happening, don't you think they would have prevented it from happening in the first place? Plus, you're insulting their intelligence and their competency. They may very well know how to fix it, but what they want is your empathy for how they're feeling right now in the moment. And the idea that they should fix something to avoid the feeling altogether is a dismissal of the idea that all feelings are worth having and sharing. So, what can you say instead? How can I best support you in this moment? Do you want help with problem solving, or do you just need to vent? I'm down either way, and I trust you know what you're doing. This is helpful because it validates for your partner that you trust their agency and control while also providing emotional support. It demonstrates that you're willing to take action to support them, but that ultimately it's their decision on how to proceed. That makes them feel powerful, capable, and safe to be vulnerable with you because you still see and love them in their entirety, both their strengths and weaknesses. I need some space. When an anxious partner hears their avoidant partner say this, they interpret it as, I need space from you. And when someone you're attached to tells you that they need space from you, it feels like abandonment. It's a very scary thing for someone with an anxious attachment style. They may start to worry that they did something wrong or that you don't care about them anymore. So this can trigger all sorts of insecurities and fears. So what should you say instead? I'm feeling overwhelmed right now about things unrelated to you, and I need some time alone. I'm doing this so that I can show up as the best version of myself in this relationship. I love you and I know you get anxious, so I'll reach out or be back on and insert the date and time. Now this statement is reassuring because it demonstrates that you still care about your partner, even though you need space. It also validates their anxious feelings while making it clear that you still need time to take care of yourself. This shows them that you are capable of handling your own emotions, which will make them feel more secure in the relationship as well. It also gives them a specific day and time to look forward to seeing you again, which can help ease any anxiousness that they feel in the meantime. Okay, so pausing there, what about these statements? Have you heard any of them? Have you uttered any of them? How does it feel when you hear them in your body? Let me know in the comments. Now, overall, both partners need to focus on their own emotional state without expecting their partners to take responsibility for it. They also both need to be honest about their needs and feelings without making assumptions about the other person's thoughts and motivations. Lastly, they both need to be responsive to each other's needs while maintaining healthy boundaries and prioritizing each other's values as highly as they do their own. Now, there is the circumstance where you take these recommendations, avoid all the trigger statements, and somehow it seems like things actually get worse. Your partner responds in an increasingly belligerent, suspicious, belittling, or passive-aggressive way. In this case, they are not ready, willing, or wanting to join you in a reciprocal relationship that is aimed at mutual growth and deepening intimacy. In their experience, emotions were very likely threatening, and they experienced severe trauma around their emotional expression. It's important to realize that you can have compassion for that circumstance while still drawing a boundary line around what you will and will not accept in an intimate relationship in general. You cannot do their healing for them. They have to do that for themselves, just like you have to focus on healing yourself as well. Learning this information today does not make you a magician. It makes you a fact finder. And once you start communicating in this way, you will discover the truth of what is really possible for you with this partner. Then it's likely that you will have some decisions to make. Now, if you're interested in learning more about that, I invite you to check out 2 of my videos, Do I Stay or Do I Go, according to your chakras, as well as the anxious avoidant trap, how to fix it and when to leave. Now, do you find yourself in either of these extremes? What has helped you find a more balanced way of relating in the anxious avoidant trap? I would love it if you'd share your stories in the comments. I take all questions and reflections into consideration when creating more videos like this. Thank you and have a great week.